Ramping up your business? The time is near. You've given it heart. Now get it in gear. It's Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
I'm Richard Gearhart, founder of Gearhart Law, a full-service intellectual property law firm specializing in patents, trademarks, and copyrights.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart, not an attorney, but I do marketing for Gearhart Law, and I am the founder of Gear Media Studios, a full-service podcast studio.
Welcome to Passage to Profit, the road to entrepreneurship, where we talk with celebrities and entrepreneurs about their stories and their business ventures.
So that being said, now it's time for our featured guest interview. What if investing in clean energy could make you rich and save the planet at the same time? Well, Mike Silvestrini isn't just dreaming it, he's doing it. And he's able to challenge just about everything that is conventional in the renewables space. So we're very happy to have him. Mike, what is the future of renewable energy?
Well, it's really what's the future of energy? Because renewable energy is just one of the types of energy sources that we rely on as the world continues to modernize and digitize. And, with more data centers, which everybody's hearing about coming online, the demand and thirst for energy is virtually insatiable. And there's a variety of tools in the toolbox for us to address that energy shortage. And the one that I think has the most velocity and the easiest and fastest to deploy at the best price is solar energy. And I'm not the only one who thinks that, because over the last 5 years, there's been more solar energy installed than all the coal and nuclear and wind and natural gas combined. So really, solar energy is the premier technology for all new power generation worldwide already. So we expect that to continue.
I'm just going to play a little devil's advocate here, because the narrative out there seems to be that renewables are great, but they're expensive and the technology isn't quite there yet. But what you're saying is completely different than what seems to be out there in the general news media. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that, there's a lot of different versions of energy markets around the world. Even within the United States, each state is kind of its own landscape for the econometrics of energy based off of the resources that they have and their history of building power plants. Like I'm in Connecticut here, where there's a large nuclear power plant, a legacy plant from the past. They just signed a terrible deal to buy electricity from that plant at a very high price. But the reality is, when you take away all the government subsidies, and energy sources are able to participate and compete toe-to-toe with one another, solar always wins. And that's happening across the world. So we're in a variety of different international markets, from South Africa and Brazil and Colombia and others. And, we entered these markets without any tax credits or the types of government intervention that we have in the U.S. energy markets. And we're able to be 30 to 40% lower than the natural gas-based energy that we're competing against. So it's very easy to install new solar plants and convert energy systems into solar-based energy systems.
As you said, AI and all these computing programs take a huge amount of energy. And batteries is one component of that. But for the solar energy, I would have liked to have solar energy on my house, but have it go to my own house. But instead it goes to the grid and then comes back, right? Is that still the way it works? Like if you have solar panels on top of your house, you have to send your energy to the utility company and then they send you energy back?
Well, first, when I'm discussing solar energy, we're really talking about energy infrastructure. This is the stuff that runs the modern world at large scale. But as far as residential solar goes, which is not my area of expertise, I treat it more like an appliance. It's something that you would like to have. It's something that you're going to use, and it does go directly to your meter. It doesn't go out to the grid and come back first.
Okay.
It'll go directly to your energy demand first. Only when there's a circumstance where your solar energy is producing more energy for an instant than your house is using at that same instant will you export the additional energy back to the grid. And hopefully, depending on what state you're in, you may get a credit for that. We're really talking about modern energy infrastructure. These are large-scale solar assets that are designed to replace 30 or 40,000 houses worth of energy. And that's the type of scale that we're going to need if we're sincere about producing energy with renewables. If we're sincere about keeping up with the increased energy demand, we're going to have to move faster than residential solar.
Where are you going to get the minerals from?
I mean, silicon. Silicon is the most abundant element in the world.
So that's the only mineral that solar panels use?
Solar energy is just silicon. So silicon is an atom, and if you look at a silicon atom that has one electron in its outer shell, if you zap that with a photon, so a package of light energy, it knocks that outermost electron off of its outermost shell, and it jumps to the nearest atom. And that creates a chain reaction. And then we have aluminum that basically provides a raceway for us to collect that electrical activity. It's called photosensitivity. And then we just keep stacking that. So the goal of a solar panel is to have a one atom thick layer. So the thickness of a solar cell is measured in microns. You want a one atom thick layer of silicon cells pointed approximately towards the sun so that you can harvest that photosensitive chain reaction. And all as it is compounding that. Put more cells together, more modules together, more arrays together until you have sizable energy production.
We're with Mike Silvestrini from Energea. Mike, can you tell us what Energea does?
Basically, we know we need to deploy substantially more renewable energy at a faster rate than we're currently doing. And the reason why is because even though we put $500 billion worth of new solar in the ground last year as a globe, that's pretty much set off the increase in demand for energy. So we didn't really make any headway against decarbonizing our existing energy infrastructure. So we need to accelerate the rate at which we deploy solar energy. And we need to look at what are the available sources of capital for that acceleration to occur. And you can go around the governments of the world and the large financial institutions, and they all have their pledges, and there's mega private equity funds, and you can add all that up. And that looks like we can maintain sort of this $500 billion run rate. But where's the additional capital going to come from? And where we think it makes the most sense is the American individual investor. And what really was lacking in the marketplace was the plumbing necessary for individual investors to find access to premium renewable energy investment opportunities. So we took advantage of a number of different tools that are pretty modern and now available. Things like Regulation A in the regulatory space that allows us to convert solar projects into securities. We have a great digital platform. We have projects around the world that rely on Starlink so that we can see and access those plants in real time. So there's a sort of a bundle of new technologies that we package together in order to take these great investment opportunities in the solar energy world and convert them into something that's easy for individual investors to buy and include in their personal investing portfolio.
How could people access this investment platform? Where do they go?
Energea.com is the way that we sell our securities. We had to make a decision as to whether or not we were going to list our funds on a stock exchange or if we were going to keep them private. But for a number of reasons, which I'm happy to go into, this asset class, which is considered an alternative asset class in energy infrastructure, really belongs in the private markets where we can control the share price. The reason why is that if you put that onto a listed exchange, people start wheeling and dealing amongst themselves. You might be willing to sell your stock at a lower price and somebody else may be able to buy a stock at a lower price, but the price should really be attached to the net asset value of the underlying solar projects. Everybody should pay the same price because the value is the same in order to get the desired return on investment. So we decided to keep control over the share price, not allow market manipulation, and instead allow people to trade amongst themselves at a price that represents the NAV of the portfolio. And that's why we use Energea.com as our exchange method to sell our securities.
So if I have an IRA and I want to take some of the funds from my IRA and buy Energea stock, I guess it's stock, then do I just tell my financial advisor, go buy Energea?
Yeah, you can do it yourself in 3 or 4 clicks on the Energea website. We have one of the best underlying architectures for investing retirement plans directly with Energea. We have our own Energea IRA, but if you go to the website, it should make it super simple for you to be able to move some of that capital and position it into real assets. So you remember, when you invest in Energea, you're buying a pro rata portion of an underlying basket of solar projects. There's no employees. It's not a company. It doesn't have operating expenses as a traditional company does. You're just directly connected to these solar energy projects. And each month, as the sun rises and it spins that meter and we invoice those customers and collect that revenue, we pay the operating expenses for the projects and then ship up the rest to our clients who get their pro rata distribution of that cash flow. About 85% of our clients choose to get those monthly dividends and reinvest it and buy more participation into more solar energy projects, creating a compounded yield effect. But it's really up to our clients. We don't make that decision. They make it for themselves. Some people want to enjoy the monthly dividend yield. But that's how I think that it's a great asset class for long-term retirement planning.
So what is the return monthly? Like if I were to put, say, $10,000 in, how much would I get as a dividend monthly on average? Do you know?
So the return and the dividend yield are two different numbers. But the way that this works is that we have different products. So we have a product that's just for Brazil. And we describe that investment thesis in the offering circular. Why are we going to Brazil? Why do we think we can make money buying solar power assets in Brazil? We do the same thing for Latin America and in Africa, in the US. And each of those investment theses has a different underlying strategy, and we expect to have different results because no two markets are the same. There are different currencies, different policies, different build costs, different radiance. We take all that into consideration, and you get approximately a 14% IRR, which is an internal rate of return, out of our Brazil portfolio. And we've been doing that for the last 5 years, haven't missed. 14% IRR.
I'm calling my guy today.
We should. It's a kick-ass asset class.
Yes.
Yeah. We spotted something in Brazil a few years ago and knew that there was going to be some oversized opportunities to make money with Brazilian solar. It's a very complex market. You need to go in there with a lot of capital and build a lot of software. You need to really fight through some challenges of doing business in Brazil. But when you do that, the reward is tremendous. And we're at a safe flying altitude. We have a beautiful batch of operating assets. We've invested about $300 million into Brazilian solar, and I plan on investing hundreds of millions more. But we also have another product like Africa is a very different market. It relies on different currencies and different risk profiles. And our Africa product is about a 10% return. These are all stated after our fees. So this is net to the investor. And it's about a 10% return. And there's a lot of reasons why Africa has a lower return than Brazil. It's because of the presence of development finance institutions, which really adulterate the natural economics and the cost and risk profile of Africa's economy. We have the U.S., where our dividend yield is 7 and change. I want to say it's 7.2%. But what we really encourage our clients to do is to, even though Brazil is this big, shiny double-digit number, and the U.S. is kind of lousy-looking 7, where your money market account is 3.5, the reality is you should blend them because these rely on a vast array of characteristics and variables and assumptions that are changing all the time. And when we look at solar energy as an asset class, I'm trying to make for you guys a perfect solar cocktail. And I look at the U.S. as the ice in the drink.
I'm all for cocktails. We're with Mike Silvestrini here from Energea. How do you spell Energea, Mike?
Energea.
That's great. We'll be back with more Passage to Profit after this. Stay tuned for Secrets of the Entrepreneurial Mind coming up toward the end of the show. We also have our favorite intellectual property news. And don't forget to experience more of Passage to Profit by subscribing to us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube, or subscribe to our podcast anywhere you get your podcast. Just look for the Passage to Profit show on any of these platforms. We'll be back right after this.
Attention investors. This is a simple commercial on the investment value of gold. Gold continues to make new highs. In good markets and in bad markets, you need to have your portfolio balanced with gold. Learn about owning physical gold or getting a gold-backed IRA. Make this simple call right now.
800-653-2073. 800-653-2073. That's 800-653-2073.
Sponsored by Reagan Gold. We're offering a 100% risk-free gold guide. Gold continues to make new highs. And unlike stocks, gold has never been worth zero. You owe it to your nest egg and future to own some physical gold or set up a gold-backed IRA. Call right now for your free report.
800-653-2073. 800-653-2073. That's 800-653-2073.
Sponsored by Reagan Gold.
Do you love going on a cruise, or have you always dreamt on going on the cruise vacation of your life? With dozens of cruise companies, who do you call to find the right vacation and deal for you? Now you can make one phone call and shop all the best deals on every single cruise line in the world. You can't get that by calling one cruise line. We have them all, with experts that know the ins and outs of every cruise ship and can tell you the best cruise for your vacation needs. Our cruise packages start at $149. Plus, we offer free internet, free guest packages, and cash back deals. So now is your chance to book the cruise of your lifetime. Call the cruise hotline right now and shop every single cruise line in the world. Here's the number. 800-577-4742. 800-577-4742. 800-577-4742. That's 800-577-4742.
Now back to Passage to Profit. Once again, Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
And our special guest, Mike Silvestrini with Energea, ENERGEA.com. And as he got an investment for you. But he started two companies. He started Green Skies Renewable Energy and grew it from 25,000 to a huge number, and he sold it. And we want to talk to him about his entrepreneurial journey and what were some of the biggest challenges and how he overcame those. So what was your biggest challenge, Mike?
Oh man, there's too many to probably prioritize as one big challenge, but really being an entrepreneur is just an enormous challenge itself. Every day is a battle. And really only the paranoid survive, we say. I look at being an entrepreneur as sort of like being an engineer of business systems, and you're building this tower and you're trying to put on the next level, but make it in such a way that doesn't fall over. So you constantly have to make sure that the health of the business is your first priority. And I always say to my team, we take care of the company will take care of us. We got to prioritize the health and well-being of the company. And I see a lot of young entrepreneurs, after you exit a company and you have some resources, you get a lot of investment opportunities to glance at. I see a lot of people starting their entrepreneurial journey in ways that make me shriek. They're not prioritizing generally how to make money, how to produce revenue. A lot of times they're too comfortable spending money when they have none, especially if they have an early angel investor or that type of thing. But I'm lucky because I wasn't smart enough to get an angel investor or any types of early support. So I only had no money. And that allowed me to stay out of trouble and not waste it. And we wound up really scrapping our way through that first sale, get our first cash flow in the door. And that money was so precious to us, we wouldn't spend it on a thing. I think it sat in the bank account for months after we made our first 25 grand. But if you keep it like that, if you put your own needs behind the needs of the company, you can really build a beautiful business. And if your idea has to be good and your team has to be good and all the rest of it. But I think the thing that really matters most is that discipline in those early days. Keep it alive and keep going, because if just sticking around will allow your business to grow. Keep the doors open and good things happen, but that requires discipline. So after I sold Green Skies, in one moment I went from having lawyers and engineers and accountants and horsepower, hundreds of employees and solar assets across America. And in one stroke of the pen, I had nothing. I had cash for the first time in my life, but I didn't have any horsepower anymore. So I sat there in my house and thought to myself, what am I going to do next? And started thinking about a number of entrepreneurial strategies, as an entrepreneur does, in different types of industries and ideas and note-taking, and realized pretty quickly that I'm really an expert in solar and nothing else. So stick with what I'm really good at and build another company. That's where Energea came out of. It was the next logical step for me as an expert. So I knew also I was non-competed from doing business in the US for a couple years after I sold Green Skies. So that's one of the reasons why I started looking overseas for investment opportunities. So I get this opportunity to go to Nicaragua, and Nicaragua is a wild ride. So I'm going there with the World Bank and somebody from the Vatican. There's the Pope's representative in Latin America. And the goal is to build a gigantic solar energy project to power the people of Nicaragua. But when I got there, things were quite different. It was wild. It's basically like a police state. So there's cameras everywhere and the government's always watching, and they don't like any dissent in their country. And I get ushered in a black car service to Laureano Ortega's mansion, where we have this beautiful conversation about all the change that's going to happen. And, I was there to represent the capital to make this project possible, whether leveraging my relationships in private equity or doing things like Energea. That's kind of what I'm known for, is capitalizing solar energy infrastructure. So I get to go from there to the utility company and another dog and pony show. Whatever you need, Mike, you tell me what we need. We're going to make it possible for you. And it didn't get weird until that night when we went out to dinner and we're sitting around with this cast of characters. And then in comes the muscle. And basically the restaurant was full and it just emptied. So now it's just us. And then there's a couple machine guns sitting on various tables around us. He summons over one of the waiters and asks him to demonstrate how much this waiter appreciates the party in power by showing his party card, which he shaking hand, pulls out of his wallet and shows me how much of a fan he is of the leading party. And they were kind of like putting on this tough guy show. And you realize that this is a group of high school buddies that run a country. And, here's their cousin is sitting in the United Nations and their other cousin is an ambassador to a foreign nation. And, but it's just this group of individuals and they owned this nation ruthlessly at that. So needless to say, we didn't park any money in Nicaragua, but that type of story is not unusual when you're chasing down international solar opportunities.
Wow.
I don't think I've ever heard a story like that before. And I have never seen a machine gun.
Yeah, watch out for Nicaragua, man.
So one more time for our audience. Where can people find Energea?
Energea is simply energea.com, ENERGEA.com. And what I love for people to do is to just come to the website, take a look at some of the videos. So we'll try to present the information a number of different ways. One way is to watch a video and see the visuals of these assets, where they are, get a sense for place. Read the offering circular. That's where we give great detail to our investment thesis for those brave enough to get through a 90-page document that establishes exactly what we're here to do, exactly how we're doing on that mission, the economics, the audited financial statements, and the other things that investors should keep an eye on before getting involved. And then lastly, we left the barrier to entry as low as we could. It's just $100 is the minimum to participate and buy some stock in Energea, because as we've seen, people come in at a level that is comfortable for them to experiment with. Some people experiment with 20 grand. Some people experiment with $100. Depends on who you are. But what they inevitably do is fall in love with the product, see the transparency of the reporting, see the value in the monthly dividends, and then get more and more engrossed with energy and become our real clients.
That sounds great. So sign up today. Go to the Energea website. I certainly will. I'm definitely interested in learning more. Thanks so much, Mike, for being with us on Passage to Profit.
Passage to Profit is a nationally syndicated radio show appearing in 38 markets across the United States. In addition, Passage to Profit has also been recently selected by FeedSpot Podcasters Database as a top 10 entrepreneur interview podcast. Thank you to the P2P team, our producer Noah Fleischman, and our program coordinator Alicia Morrissey, our studio assistant Risikat Busari, and our social media powerhouse Carolina Tabares. Look for our podcast tomorrow anywhere you get your podcasts. Our podcast is ranked in the top 3% globally. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and on our YouTube channel. And remember, while the information on this program is believed to be correct, never take a legal step without checking with your legal professional first. Gerhardt Law is here for your patent, trademark, and copyright needs. You can find us at gerhardtlaw.com and contact us for a free consultation. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.